Okay, we are live. Good afternoon. This is Attorney Vincent Davis coming to you live from Los Angeles County, California, specifically the city of Arcadia. And this is How to Fight CPS and Win. We're doing a live show today. Haven't done a live show in a while. So I'm back. And we have as a guest today Joanne. I can't
Yes,
pronounce the last name.
Andrioli.
What's the last name, Joanne?
Andrioli.
Andrioli. Okay.
Yeah.
Just what I thought. Okay. Joanne, where are you from?
I'm from Rhode
Where do
Island,
you live?
Hope Valley, Rhode Island. That's where I live.
Oh, okay. Is that where you're living right now? Okay.
Yes.
And you're calling about a problem with CPS in Rhode Island?
It
Is that
started
accurate?
and it's actually a case that was
Hold on.
started in
Hold on.
Massachusetts.
Okay, so it's a CPS case in Massachusetts. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Is it going on now or is it over with?
It's going on now.
Okay. Go ahead and give me some backstory, and then I'm going to let you ask me some questions just one on one. I'm going to answer your questions, and then we'll go from there. Okay?
Okay.
Give me some story.
My story started with I didn't know anything about DCF or whatever, and I was in the hospital having spinal surgery last year, April and May, and my daughter ended up in the hospital in May, and she has my two granddaughters, and um, my youngest granddaughter has been in a NICU from birth, and then she got out and back in the NICU in March of last year, and my other granddaughter, and then my other granddaughter is older, but um, I believe my daughter said it might have started in the hospital with my youngest granddaughter was in the NICU at the time she was 6 months old at her last inpatient. And when I got out of the hospital and my granddaughter's granddaughter got out of the hospital, my daughter's gastroparesis started to kick up. And once in a while, she has to go on feeding tube. It doesn't affect her parenting at all. She's very smart. She owns a business. She's a CEO of a media company in Connecticut. So there was some argumentation with my daughter telling them at the hospital that my granddaughter she had hypoxia and I forgot the other name of the condition, and they were very argumentative, and my sister was there with her, and my sister got really upset. I guess the social worker got involved at that point, and they kept saying she's fine, she can go home at the one in March of this year. And I would, like I said, was in the hospital. So get to the story is that when I was on the phone with my daughter with iPhones, and there was a sitter that is a friend of the father's family who I believe is around my age, who was watching the children for us because my sister's husband broke his hip. I was in the hospital having my fourth spinal surgery. My daughter gets admitted into the hospital to have tubes placed. My daughter had to go back into the hospital the day I was released from my surgeon. I went over to my daughter's to finally visit her, and the kids were with the sitter still. And she showed me her tubes, and they were bleeding. And so I said, "Get back to the hospital." She did on May 26th of 23, and they admitted her on the 27th. The sitter called me on the 27th and said, "I got called from my work. I need to work tomorrow. Can I drop the girls off?" She's from Franklin, Mass. I said, sure, I'll meet you halfway. She said, no, I got a ton of stuff for them, so it's easier if I just have their stuff in my car and I'll just drive to Rhode Island. I said, okay. She come over and I met her, very nice lady, and brought all my granddaughter's things, and I was in awe because I hadn't seen them in a couple of months. My surgeon released me and gave me permission to care for them. I can lift up to 25 pounds. I have no reason not to care for them or visit with them or sit for them or have them stay overnight like they used to. And he said, if you don't, I'm going to go, joking with me. So I was physically, mentally capable. So she leaves. I had him for like 7 days. I video chatted with my daughter every day so she could see the girls. And I took pictures of them and whatever. On a Wednesday in the middle of that week, an investigator called my daughter. My daughter calls me up from the hospital. She just got out of surgery. She's like kind of out of it, saying that there's an investigator it wants to investigate because they keep getting notices from the hospital where the kids go to the pediatric appointments. And she said, can you talk to her for me, Mom? I said, of course. So my daughter three-wayed her into the conversation. And she said, I want you to call Boston Children's Hospital. They're saying that your youngest granddaughter has missed all her appointments, that your daughter is neglecting to take it to her appointments. I said, that is not true. I'm calling right now. So my daughter and I called, and the woman there was mortified and said, there's not one missed appointment. The appointments that weren't your daughter didn't bring your youngest granddaughter to was impossible because we know she was in the NICU at the hospital next door when she was born, 3 months, and then went back in March of 2023. She goes, but we do have an appointment set up for a 6-month/9-month with that understanding to see the pediatrician that your older granddaughter also sees, who is now 2.5 years old. But at that time, she was like 22 months old. So I said, what about my oldest granddaughter? Oh, no, she's all set. Her birthday's this time, and her appointment's July 1st of last year. And I said, okay. So I called the investigator back and said, there are no missed appointments. This is who I spoke to. They have set appointments, and I will take them to those appointments. I've taken my older granddaughter. I enjoy it. I love it. Even with my daughter as well. They're my life. They're like so special to me. So I thought it was over. On a few days go by, and my daughter calls me up crying again. She's getting discharged from the hospital on this day. They called me, my daughter, and said, we need a face-to-face. Either you get to your apartment in New Bedford, or we go to your mother's in Rhode Island. So what's it going to be? She said, well, I'm getting discharged today. She said, well, my manager wants me to meet face-to-face with the girls by 11 a.m. So she said, well, then I guess you're going to have to drive to Rhode Island and see them at my mom's. So she called me, and I said, that's fine. I want to talk to an ombudsman first. I know nothing about this. I know you're from DCF. So I called the ombudsman in Boston, and he said, do you do anything wrong? Drugs, smoke, drink? I said, no, I don't. I couldn't have my surgeries. I don't do any of them. I'm a Christian. I'm fully in faith with God. No, I don't. He said, so you have nothing to hide? I said, no. He said, let him in then. I told the investigator to come over. I wish I didn't. They came over and sabotaged me. The social worker sat on my couch where I'm sitting now and had a phone with a recorder under it, a black box and I didn't get it until they left. But the investigator sat on my other couch and said to me, asked me a million questions. They said that they did research on me and that the biological father assaulted me. I said, that's true. I don't lie. I said, but I have a restraining order on him. I said, and a no trespassing order, so the children are safe with me. They told me to take my granddaughter to the bathroom, my older one. I took her to the bathroom. They ended up taking pictures of my of the kitchen where I ripped up. I used to own a construction company. So I had couple months before my unexpected surgery to correct my 3 surgeries that failed. I ripped the floor, half of the floor from the dining room and kitchen meet. So I took the top layer of vinyl off. So I had a white floor with the little tar on it. Now I get my grandchildren dropped off unexpectedly. Even if they weren't, there's nothing wrong with it. It wasn't like floorboards. It wasn't nothing wrong with the floor. It was a thin piece of linoleum I took off and placed different types of tile to see if that's what my best friend wanted to do. So they took pictures and sent them to my daughter. They took pictures of the kitchen and the stuff I had on the tables that was packed because I was in the middle of moving to my own apartment out of the house that I'm in, which I'm in right now, which is my best friend. So they tried to use the floor being the first layer of vinyl being ripped up and the wrong formula that the sitter gave me against me. So I talked it all out with them. I told them it wasn't a specific formula, it can be substituted. It was a time when the formula was hard to get, any formula. So the doctor, being intelligent as he is, did it as a prescription. If we ran out or I didn't have access to it while my daughter was in the hospital, it could be substituted. Just make sure it's similar. That's what I did. They made a 27-page report and call me MGM. But before that, I get into that, I'm skipping the biggest part. They wrote me a note after they collaborated in my driveway for an hour, came back in and said, we're not going to take the kids away from you or from your daughter. We're going to work together as a family, as a team, counseling, maybe we're going to tweak this, tweak that. I said, I'm in. Whatever you need me to do, I'll do it. Whatever my daughter needs. You promise me you're not taking these kids because they're fine. They are here all the time. Since they were born, I always had them. Well, not my youngest one, but in between. So she said, no, we're not here to take the kids. Okay. The investigator ran back in the house after an hour, ripped a piece of note paper, not even a whole page, and wrote to call Hope Valley State Police, call DCYF in Rhode Island, and then call the social worker who was sitting next to me recording me if the parents try to come get them, because we already called your daughter and you're going to be keeping them till Monday. We're all going to meet up in New Bedford at their home on Monday so mom can rest. Okay. I said, that's fine with me. The longer I have, I don't care. I love having my grandchildren. My daughter felt they were scamming me. And they gave me this note and they said, keep it under your pillow. And I did. I said, if anyone comes here, my daughter obviously can't drive. She's just getting discharged. The investigator in front of me called the same hospital and red flagged my daughter's file. So she had enough time to kidnap my granddaughters. She called the hospital in front of me and she red flagged to the social worker at the hospital my daughter is at, Brigham and Women in Boston, that Angelina might try to MIA, or however you say it, AMIA herself. Now, she already told us and was scheduled to be discharged that day. The investigator, now I figured out, it was trying to buy time. Later on that evening, my granddaughters, I gave them back. They were in bed sleeping, and at 11:25 p.m., I thought it was thunder and lightning. Oh, I saw lights coming through the window. I live in it's a raised ranch. I hear banging on the house. I'm like, oh my God. So I got up to shut the blinds so that it won't bother the kids in the room because it would come that way. And I saw police outside. And I was like, oh my God. Before I could even realize anything, they kicked my front door in. And they kicked the door in and broke it off the hinge and came. One was in combat outfit and another was in their fancy beige to do, a woman. And I know them pretty much. I lived here a long time. And I'm like, what is going on? Why are you doing this? They're like, oh, there's a woman behind us that's going to come in from GCF. And they're taking your granddaughters, and she'll explain why. This woman came in, walked up the stairs. I was hysterical. I said, you're not taking my grandbabies. She said, I am taking them. This is a dangerous situation. I said, no, it's not. I was told to call if the parent, which they meant the father, because there was a history, a couple of incidences of domestic violence, of abuse or whatever in the past, not new. And I said, please don't take them. They promised me. I showed them the letter. I showed the police the letter. They said, no, go make them a bottle. They carried them out one by one while the other state trooper held the door shut so I wouldn't see them putting them in an SUV from Massachusetts license plate. I already saw the car from my window, and they held the door shut so they could take the kids out and then shut it, and then take the kids out and shut it. And then they made me stay at the top of my stairs before they would let me go down the stairs till they all left, except for that last state trooper, the woman that was dressed all up. I opened the door. She said she was going to come back in and talk to me. She opens the door. She looks in, slams it, and left. And they all left. I'd rather be shot. But I'm still in shock that this happened. I pray, God, my faith is, I'm so close to God. And I'm like, they were protected. If their father tried to even come on the street, he would have got arrested. I have no trespassing. I had everything in order. I didn't. If I made the phone call, then I would have been okay with it. But I didn't make the phone call. I didn't need any help. And they took the kids. And they took the kids with no formula from my youngest granddaughter, who supposedly I didn't give them the right formula. They put them in a building and kept them for a few days with giving her, I don't know what formula. They had the nerve to call my daughter, who was supposed to be resting, 2 days later to meet them at a CVS in New Bedford to give the formula to DCF and diapers. And my daughter did it. My daughter got a court appointed lawyer. The 72-hour hearing came about. The Court appointed came out after all day, 8 hours of court in and out. And she said to my sister and I and my daughter that she's getting the kids back on Monday, which would have been June 12th.
What year?
So she was going to get her kids back to New Bedford where they live
What
on
year?
Monday. But in 2023, last
Okay.
year. On the 11th, my daughter's home alone, and she hears, now in court, I'm sorry to say quick, in court, she had to testify against the biological father about past abuse. Not recent, not in the near, like, it was long ago, but she had to testify and tell the truth to the judge in front of DCF. Whatever questions they asked her, she told the truth. They didn't give my daughter any protection. So here she is telling her story to the judge and DCF. Her only thoughts were, I want my children, my little babies back. They're miracle babies. She has gastroparesis. She's not even supposed to have had babies. So with that said, here comes on the 11th on Sunday. I call her and she's like, I'm like, how are you? She's like, I'm okay. And she's not right. I said, I'm going to eat something. I said, all right, call me back. You don't sound good. She goes, oh, I'm sleeping. She don't call me back. She then calls me back a couple hours later that on the 11th and says, come now. And then the phone drops. I can't get in touch with her. So I flew from Rhode Island. I flew to New Bedford. I went in the back door. The door was barricaded with the boxes of her feeding formula and my granddaughter's formula. So I pushed the door in and went flying because there was food. So the biological father, they're not married, who she wasn't allowed there, broke in the back door and threw food all over the kitchen, dining room, and living room. I walked quietly to the end of the stairwell because it's a townhouse. And I said, Angelina, mommy's here. She goes, hi, Mom, I'm in the bathroom. Hold on, I'll be right down. I said, okay. She comes running down. She's got her tubes hanging out. She's naked with just like a see-through knitted, like a cover up you wear from the beach that I had bought her. She had no clothes. And she was all beaten up so badly. If I could show you a picture of her, bad. I met her a few steps up. I grabbed her. I carried her. As I'm walking, I saw her phone all smashed because he's good for breaking her phones. So she can't have contact to report him. So I picked her broken phone up, put it in my pocket, carried my daughter to the back door. I grabbed a neighbor was hanging clothes. I asked him for his boxes. I put them on her. I ran her to my car. I drove like a nut up the street and pulled over and hid and called 911. And the rescue took my daughter to the hospital. And the police went over to the apartment and arrested the biological father. The social worker at the hospital said, do you have, a social worker, or are you involved with? And we told him our story, how we're getting the kids back tomorrow. He's like, yikes. He goes, you better call your lawyer. So my daughter could just about talk. She's still recovering from the hospital. She's all banged up, bad. I never saw bruises that bad in my whole life. I called her lawyer, and she started swearing at me, saying I'm a effing idiot. I'm no good. I'm stupid. I just made her lose her kids forever. I said, what was I supposed to do? I had to take her to the hospital. She just got out of the hospital. Her tubes had blood around the area, and her whole body bruised, but mostly her eyeball bone, brow. The bone was broken. Her eye was bright pink and green and black and purple, and the rest of her face was beat up. I said, I'm her mom. I had to take her to the hospital. I want to make sure she's okay. If he pulled those tubes too much, her intestines would ingest each other and she'd die. Well, she said, you just made this so bad for your daughter. Your daughter's never getting those kids back. On Monday, which was the next day. The next day, my daughter went to court, and my sister went with her because I was in a state of shock between what happened with the kids being taken. Then I got to go pick her up and see her beaten. So I stayed at my daughter's house, and my sister went. There was no one at court. No one. So the lawyer must have reported it to the judge, and they dismissed giving the kids back on the 12th of June.
Well,
And since then, they've been
let
torturing us.
let me ask you something. What questions do you have for me?
Who's in charge of the
Hmm.
supervisor and the social worker at these, quote, fake child protection services? Because they
Well,
don't protect the real children who need help.
okay.
They kidnap and traffic.
Well, every
babies.
agency has their own director, person that you can contact. But you contacting them, in my opinion, will be a waste of time. What you should do is number one, get a lawyer that's an expert in that area of law in your area. Number two, you should talk to the lawyer about making a complaint with the federal government. You can make a complaint with the Department of Health and Human Services, who basically funds and runs all CPS agencies throughout the United States. And you can also make a complaint with the Department of Justice, Civil Rights Division.
I
But
called them.
more importantly, you should be talking to this attorney, figuring out a strategy where you, another family member, or the mother can get the child or the children back.
Well, that court-appointed lawyer dropped my daughter
Okay,
because I had to
so
go to the hospital. Then she
okay,
got a
so
court another lawyer. We went and see several lawyers that are top dog lawyers and really strong in this. And they were unaffordable. My daughter and I are disabled and we're both on SSDI, and we couldn't afford 20,000 down and 20,000 payment plan. I went to all the top ones in Mass and that are highly regarded and know this. And I know they could get my granddaughters back in a second. Also, DCF told us if you don't get a lawyer, it'd be easier for reunification if you stick to the service plan and have the social worker she had at the time do home visits with her by herself at her place. August 22nd came. The social worker came on August 20th. I happened to be at my daughter's. She said, you're getting your kids back. Definitely. My daughter and I went to court August 22nd. The court was canceled.
okay,
There was
hold on a
paper.
second. Hold on a second. I got that part. Did you talk to an attorney by the name of Kevin Seaver in Massachusetts?
Yes. Yes.
He wasn't able to help you?
We couldn't afford it.
Because if there is somehow you can hire him,
That's who I want.
I know that he can work. In my opinion, he will probably be able to work miracles for you in getting these kids back.
Well, something happened with my daughter and him where I guess what happened was the biological dad's mom has money and promised my daughter money to retain him, less than what he wanted, but enough for him to take and do a payment plan. So every time my daughter was supposed to meet with him, the biological mom, his mom, would like not answer the phone. We couldn't get in touch with her. So Kevin Stevens got sick of it. So now I call him about 3 months ago and said, Angelina's mom, I want to retain you. I don't have a lot of money. I know you do a payment plan. I know you can get my granddaughters back. He said, I tried with your daughter and every appointment was missed. I said it wasn't her fault. She didn't have the cash. The biological father's mom did, and she has a drinking problem and didn't comply to her promise. And my daughter didn't know how to tell you that. So can you help me help my daughter? Can we do this all together? I said, I'll sign anything. I'll pay for half of it on my own and whatever. I'll work whatever out. I know you can get them out. He said, no. He said, why don't you just go on Google and Google some attorneys? I was like, are you serious? He's like, yep. My daughter told me you also, I don't want to say it on television, but he was very disrespectful to her when she met with him in person by herself. But still wanted me to call him, and I still wanted to hire him and disregard the stupidness behind the scenes, and he refused me. And then I contacted another lawyer, Stephen Miller, very smart, older gentleman. And again, the resources for the down payment, we couldn't get on time. I did a GoFundMe, I didn't get nothing. I don't know what to do. Her lawyer now, the court appointed's on DCF's side. They just recently made her sign a new plan of service to get her kids back. And the only way she can get them back, and she had to sign this last Tuesday, is if she stays away from her mother, me, has no contact with me. I can't drive her to her doctor's or surgeon appointments, to stay away from me, to stay out of Rhode Island, because I'm bringing drugs to my daughter. My daughter is using drugs and substances. My daughter is under 4 or 5 specialty doctors' cares that do lab blood constantly, every week, every month. They've been in contact with them, sending them documents, sending them her conditions and this and that, and they won't return the doctor's calls. So the new service plan says stay away from your mother, get your own rides. We don't want you to have no contact with your mother. And a court-appointed attorney was at that meeting on last Tuesday. And my daughter didn't want to sign it, but they said, if you don't sign it, we're giving your kids up for adoption. They also said my daughter has to go to a shelter for 30 days if she cannot be admitted into a rehabilitation for drugs or alcohol. My daughter doesn't do drugs or alcohol. She takes her medicine. Her doctor sends the lab reports every time she goes there to DCF, and they know this. And they're still accusing my daughter of talking too fast. That's in her description of her illness. They have that. So her new service plan says you have for psych eval, which she doesn't care about. She's going to do it. She said, "Oh, cheers." They said if you can't get into a rehab, no rehab's going to take you if you're not abusing drugs or if you're not drunk or you don't do alcohol, and keep you 30 days. So they said if that don't work out, then you go to a shelter so we can keep an eye on you in the public eye. She said, I have a house. I pay rent. They said 30-day shelter, 30-day rehab is mandatory. Stay away from your mother. And there was one more thing I wrote down, and her service plan said, the psych eval and substance abuse eval. Her doctors are out of their minds sick.
Hold on, Joanne.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No. I have to move to the next guest, but this is what I would like you to do if you or your daughter have any questions. I might be able to make a call to you to Kevin Seaver. We know each other professionally, and we've talked before about CPS cases and helping folks there in Massachusetts.
I respect him and he's so knowledgeable.
So on this screen in the bottom right hand corner under me is a telephone number.
Hmm.
I want you to call that number after you get off the show today and make an appointment for me, you, and your daughter to speak offline, okay?
Okay.
And I might be able to answer questions you have. You don't have to tell me any more parts of the story. I think I have it. But I want you to be prepared with questions that you want to ask me. All right?
Yes. I wrote a whole page down.
Okay. Thank you very much. For some reason, my producer scheduled 2 guests today, and I only have an hour, and
Okay.
we're at the 36-minute mark, and I gotta
I'm
get to the other
sorry.
guests. No problem, no problem. You know what you might
Mhm.
wanna do, and my producer is listening to the show, you might also wanna talk to her about coming back on the show, maybe even tomorrow with your lists of questions. I'm gonna be doing a show tomorrow live, so maybe you can jump on instead of having a phone call. You can ask me these questions just live on the air, because it might be beneficial for not only you, but to other people watching. Uh,
Absolutely.
your
I want
questions
to help
answered.
everyone.
Okay. So
I'll get
Grace,
back.
Grace, go ahead and contact this young lady, and we'll have her on tomorrow. We haven't picked a time for the show tomorrow, but we will be. But don't worry, we're going to be doing it.
I'll
Okay.
be available.
All right. I'll see you tomorrow.
Okay.
All right, folks, we're going to bring on in our next guest, and we're running a little late. Um, our next guests are Robert and Laura, or Laura and Robert. Hello there.
Hello,
How are you?
I'm good. Nice to meet you. I've been
Nice to meet
watching your videos.
Oh, good, good, good. Hope they've helped.
They do, but my story's long. We've been in CPS for
Hold
2
on,
years.
hold on a second. What state are you in?
Kentucky.
Okay. And if I was there in Kentucky and able to practice law in Kentucky, what would you want me to do?
I would want you to file a 42 USC 1983.
Okay. So you must have gotten the kids back then if you
No,
want
I
to.
don't have the kids back.
Okay, well, do you want to concentrate on a civil rights lawsuit, or do you want to concentrate on getting the kids back?
Um, well, the kids back, of course. No, I'm not. I just we're in the middle. We have a TPR case that's coming up. But we don't have the court date yet.
Well, see, here's the thing. In most states, and I don't know if Kentucky is one of these states, I'm licensed in California. Um, Suing the social workers before the TPR isn't going to help your case to get the kids back. Do you realize that?
Um, no, I haven't.
Yeah.
Um,
See, a lot of people think, oh, if I sue you for civil rights violations, it's going to make you give the kids back. And that's not true. And as long as I've been doing this, I've never seen that happen. Okay. And I've been involved in a lot of civil rights cases and a lot of, CPS cases. So what you have to pick, in my opinion, is what do you want to focus on? Do you want to focus on suing them or do you want to focus on getting the
my
kids back?
kids.
Okay. So let's
I
not
only
talk
have
about
one now. Two of mine aged out.
Okay, so let's not talk about 42 USC 1983 just yet.
Okay.
Doesn't mean that we can't talk about it as far as the two that have aged out, but that's going to be a whole nother show, a whole nother conversation. Okay. All right. So let's talk about the child that you want to get back. How old is that child?
7.
Oh, young.
They took her at 5. She would throw crying fits just to come home.
Okay. What were the allegations for them taking the child away from you?
Well, the cops came in and told them I was on meth, and I went to the doctor and did a drug test, and there was no meth in my system. I am disabled. I've been disabled since 2011, and I use the little pot gummies that we can buy at our smoke shops here. Um, Now, in my past, I've been on fentanyl. I've been on prescribed, and those aren't. I feel like it's an ethics issue on many things because they're trying to make me go to a psychiatrist. I've already been to a psychiatrist. They did do a forensic mental evaluation on me and my husband both. They're claiming I have mental issues because of past abuse from an ex, which when they took the kids, they let him see. And it was against their own orders to do so. So they went and had us do a forensic mental evaluation. And see, here's the thing. We had already had a DV substance evaluation or DV assessment, a substance evaluation assessment, and a mental at a place called Everlasting Arms. And they said, no, we got to do forensics. Well, even my counselor was arguing with the forensic reporter, and everything in there is lies. Now, since this case has been going on, and this is where I'm real tricky, on January 24th, we papered up as state nationals. Are you familiar with Anna Von Rice or American State Nationals?
I've heard of them, and that I know that it is not going to help you.
Right. It didn't, because we turned in our relinquishing power of attorney and they still made us have attorneys.
What made you think to use that strategy?
My ex-abuser was in Aryan Brotherhood, and he said he was coming after me because I was Catholic and for a life insurance bond and estate money. So he actually admitted to me, and this started way back in 2002.
Well, wait a minute. You're not answering my question. I asked you what made you try to implement that strategy. I mean, you weren't born with that knowledge. Like, where did you get that idea from?
A friend of mine, and just research. Been
Okay,
researching a lot.
Stop. Okay. Now, I'm going to give you some information. I'm going to try to be respectful. Okay. And I'm going to first tell you a story. Several years ago, a guy from Northern California hired me to do his case. Okay. He was approaching TPR as well, just like you. And he paid me a lot of money. And one of my conditions to work with you is that you're going to use and follow my strategy. Okay.
Okay.
It's not that I don't want to hear from you about your strategy, but pretty much most clients, don't have the legal education or experience to give me a strategy. I've only been doing this for 38 years. Okay. So, when he hired me, he agreed to do that. Then, about a week into the engagement, he went on the internet and researched himself and found strategies to implement, kind of like what you just mentioned to me. Okay. And he insisted that I implement those strategies or refund his money. I happily refunded his money. He implemented the strategies with the next attorney. About 4 or 5 months later, he calls me back and says, "Hey, you were right. That doesn't work in CPS court. And I've lost my child through termination of parental rights." One of the things that I've noticed, having done this a long time, is that people in your situation, and rightfully so, are frustrated and desperate. Okay. And it's kind of like, I have cancer and I have a month to live, and I heard about this treatment in, Mexico, and it's going to save my life. We want to believe that. I mean, if I was in that situation, I'd want to believe it. But it's akin to the situation that is, I'm about to lose my children in a TPR. So I'm willing to try anything. You're going to waste money and time and effort implementing those types of strategies. in a CPS case. And to be honest, and like I told this guy, I said, "Hey, man, they're going to laugh you out of court." When he called me back several months later, he goes, and they laughed me out of court. He says, "Can you do the appeal on that?" I said, "I could do the appeal, but it's you might as well open your window and throw money out the window because it's not going to work. It's just not going to work." So what you need to do is find if you, I don't know who your lawyer is, but if he or she is a good lawyer, or you need to find a good lawyer that's going to implement and come up with a strategy to stop the TPR. Now, if you were in California, and I'm going to assume, although I may be wrong, that it's like this in Kentucky. If you came to me in California and say, "Hey, I got a case from Los Angeles, they're going to TPR me in a month, what can I do?" This is what I would tell you. Number one, hire a lawyer if you don't have a good lawyer. Number two, talk to the lawyer about filing a motion for a bonding study.
Bonding study?
Mhm.
I'm sorry,
Number
I'm writing it down. I didn't mean to
Oh,
interrupt.
you don't have to write it down because it's gonna be on this platform forever.
Okay.
You can watch it forever. Okay. Number 3, you would file a 388 to ask the court to give you more reunification services, return the child, give you better visitation. Now, does Kentucky have a 388? I don't think so. They have something akin to a 388. What is it called? I don't know. I'm not licensed in Kentucky, but you'll be able to find that from your attorney. Okay. That is what you have to focus on very narrowly right now. If your rights are terminated, okay, then we can start talking about 42 USC 1983. By the way, that's not a magic bullet to get your child back. You understand that, right? A lot of people come to me and say, "Well, 42 USC, civil rights, oh my God, you're going to stop, we're going to blow up the court and we're going to blow up CPS and we're going to get the kids back, blah, blah, blah." No, that's wrong. Okay. That's not what 42 USC is about. All right. But you shouldn't be concentrating on that right now, in my humble opinion. You should be concentrating on getting the children back in your custody. The other thing that I would do is I would assume that your children are not with friendly relatives or family friends, and you and your attorney should make a motion to have the kids replaced to a relative's home.
We had that motion on Tuesday, and she's going to my cousin during spring break. But this will be her 5th move.
Okay, is your cousin on your side?
She's a 3rd cousin, so we're pretty distant. I really only see her at Thanksgiving. Now, I was kind of close to her mom and uncle because they were my age group, you know. But she's for it. She's for reunification, and that's like my biggest, when I spoke with her.
Okay. Well, does she live in the same county you live in?
No,
Where does she live?
she lives in Indiana.
Do they already have an approved ICPC?
Yes, they approved it. Yes, or Thursday.
They didn't have any relatives. You or the father don't have any relatives in your hometown, in your home county, in your home state?
I'm an only child. My husband has a 30-year-old and a 36-year-old. He is 67.
Hold on a second.
He's here with me if you want to speak with him too.
No, I'm talking to you, Laura.
Okay.
Listen to this. Laura, do you have any family that live in your city, county, or state? Yes or no?
Yes, but they're
Are
not
you
willing. We've tried.
okay? They're not willing. All right. Do you have any friends
I
that
have a
live?
friend, and we brought her up on Thursday. Her name, I can't give names, but anyway, yeah, we have a friend, and we requested the judge to take her in to account, but they're set on moving her during spring break, so she's already going to the family member. They
Okay,
didn't
so
even do an ICPC on the friend, which I wish they would.
well, the friend doesn't need an ICPC if she's local.
Yeah, that's what they said in court. That's right.
So what you need to do is you probably need to file an appeal on that issue. Talk to your attorney. Again, I prefer you listen and not take notes because this is being taped.
Okay, sorry.
No need. You know, tell you an interesting story real quick about listening. When about seems like 10 years ago, maybe, what is 24? No, maybe 24, 25 years ago, I attended a college, a trial lawyers college. And at the time, it was run by Jerry Spence. Do you know who Jerry Spence is?
Do you know who Jerry Spence is? No.
Jerry with a G. If you Google him afterwards, he is probably known as the country's greatest trial lawyer of all time. He had a college, and he still does, but it's called something else now, called Trial Lawyers College. He founded, and it taught attorneys how to be better trial lawyers. One of the key things that you have to learn is how to listen. Now, 25 years ago, I was like, I'm 65 years, so you do the math, but I thought I knew how to listen. And what I come to find out is I don't know how to listen. I didn't know how to listen very well at all. So active listening is key, especially when you're on the witness stand. Okay. So one of the things that you will do is sometimes somebody will ask you a question and you'll give an answer about something that has no relationship to the question. And judges are trained at judge school, at least here in California, to gauge the credibility of a witness by the way they answer a question. Do they answer the question that was asked? And don't forget, we're not sitting around in your living room or out in your back porch jawboning because we're just having conversation like regular people. Court is a false reality. Okay, there's different rules in how people respond and act and how you're judged. So if you don't give a straightforward answer, you might be in danger of being found not credible, which means that you'll lose. Here's an example. This is a true life example. It happened maybe over 20 years ago. I'm asking my client a question. Okay. And by the way, this is a car accident case. Sir, what color was the light when the accident happened? Okay. Now, the answer to that question is it was red, it was green, it was yellow. Or, I don't know, I didn't see it. This is what he started off. Well, that morning I woke up and I had oats and blueberries for breakfast with some skim milk. I shaved, I took my shower, and he goes on and on and on, and he takes us up until the point of the accident. And then he tells us what color the light was. We're like 3 minutes into it, 4 minutes into it. We lost that case, and one of the things the judge said was, your client wasn't credible. Was not credible. You know why? He didn't answer the question. So remember that when you're in court, or even if you're talking to me. I mean, I'll ask you something, and then I'll give you a prime example, and I'm going to help this lady with the prior guest. What's your question? And she goes off and tells me a story. Well, what's your question? She tells me more of the story. What's the question? She tells me more of the story. You get it? A lot of times you just want to get out what you want to get out. That's not going to be effective in the courtroom, and it's not going to be effective with me usually. Because, these shows are of a limited time, right? They're supposed to be anyway. And it's going to be hard for me to get in if you want to go on and on and on. If you noticed, I had to stop her because you were waiting in the green room and I had to bring you and your husband on. So there are 3 or 4 things that I've told you, okay, that you need to do. I'm going to recap them for you, okay? Number 1, if your attorney is not a good attorney helping you, you got to get a good attorney. Number 2, you got to talk to the attorney about filing a bonding study. Number 3, you got to file the Kentucky equivalent to a 388 petition to get more visitation, to get more family reunification services, and perhaps even place the child there in Kentucky in your city someplace. Okay? Those are the things that you have to do now. Now, do you have the evidence to win? I don't know. I don't know anything about your case. I'm assuming that you do. Okay? If you don't, you or your attorney are going to have to deal with that situation. Okay? Now, there's one thing I do want to tell you. In California, I don't know if it's like this in Kentucky, so don't get me wrong. I mean, don't quote me. In California, CPS nor the judge can make that relative adopt your children. As a matter of fact, a lot of times friendly relatives will say, I don't want to adopt. I want to give Laura and Robert a chance 2 years from now to get their kids back. I only want legal guardianship. Early on in California, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, they could use that against the foster parent relative and take the kids away from them. The law changed because that was unfair, right? Why take away the kids from grandma just because she won't adopt them? That was strictly a money move, because when you adopt, the state has no further responsibility, usually financially, for these kids. They might be paying adoptions assistance for a couple of years, but that's it. Guardianship, you got to pay the grandmother until the kids turn 18. So obviously guardianship was more expensive, but what are we looking at? Are we looking at finances? Are we looking at what's best for the children and the family? Right? So it's illegal for them to do that in California. If your third cousin doesn't want to adopt. Is that the law in Kentucky? I don't know, but you'll be talking to your Kentucky lawyer about that, right?
Okay.
Okay.
I just get a new lawyer too because I was kind of unsatisfied with the other one.
Okay. Sometimes now, we don't have much time, but I want to caution people. Sometimes, I'm not saying all the time, but sometimes we make judgments about lawyers that are not actually correct. Right? So before you conclude that lawyer is not going to help you, which may be the case, don't get me wrong, which may be the case, make sure of that, because sometimes you're getting rid of a lawyer that's a really good lawyer.
He wouldn't do the TPR case.
Does he
said
have
he just
does he have a choice? See, in California, you can't just get off the case because you don't want to do it. Maybe it's different in Kentucky. But if he doesn't want to do it, don't make him,
exactly.
because his heart will probably not be in the right place. Get another lawyer. Okay. And you unfortunately, you may have to pay for that lawyer. There's something I heard when I was a kid, and my grandfather, who helped raise me, used to say this all the time. He would say, you get what you pay for. Unfortunately, in this country, it's a capitalist based system. And people think that, they're getting a free attorney and they expect Johnny Cochran. It doesn't work like that, unfortunately. And that has nothing to do with the system of CPS. It has to do with, the way people are and the way our government and our economy is set up. Right. So if you have to pay for a lawyer, I would, for me, it would be worth it. It's my child we're talking about. By the way, I just got this idea. If your siblings aged out, did you know that they could take your child?
They said they're too young.
No. Well, I don't know what the law is in California, but I mean in Kentucky, but in California, they're not too young. And I've heard people say this, 18-year-old, he's too young to take care of a child. That's BS. There's no evidence of that. They
Well,
can prove, or they can disprove, or you have to prove that the 18-year-old can take care of the kid.
the
The
18
law is here in California, in order to take a kid, you got to be 18 or older. But, I hear a lot of times social workers wanting to exclude the 18 to like 24-year-old or 23-year-old just because of the age. You know, I don't know if you know this, but that's age discrimination. That's against federal law, right? It's against federal law to discriminate based upon age. You got to make an investigation and talk to that 18-year-old. Like, is the 18-year-old really a 13-year-old or is the 18-year-old a 30-year-old? People have different levels of maturity.
I have one of both. I have an 18 and 19-year-old, and they have both recommitted to the state. So they're not totally independent. And I think that has something to do with it.
Well, you better talk to an attorney because in California, they could take the kid. One of the things about the law, and especially the federal regulations, is to try to keep sibling groups intact and together. What better way to do that in your case? How do you like that idea?
I've discussed it with my 19-year-old. My 18-year-old is like my 13-year-old, and my 19-year-old is like the 30-year-old. So,
Okay. So talk to the 19-year-old. Maybe the 19-year-old needs to get a lawyer and go to court and fight for the 7-year-old. I used to give this example all the time, and it's such a good example, in my opinion. Let's assume that you had $10 million hidden in your secret hiding place in your closet below the floorboards. Social worker walks in without the warrant, goes to your closet, finds that case of $10 million, puts it on her shoulder, and walks out the door. What are you going to do? You know what you're going to do? You're going to call Johnny Cochran if he were still alive. That's what you're going to do. Okay? Now, you'll do that for that case of money. Why don't you do it for your child?
our previous lawyer was a paid lawyer.
And what happened?
He didn't want to do that TPR case. He said he just lost one in court.
Okay, well that comes with the territory. You don't win every case. But if he doesn't want to do it, get another one. What city in Kentucky do you live in?
I live in Louisville. The case is in E-Town in Hardin County.
I don't know what that means. I mean, are they close to each other?
Yeah, we live in two different cities. We're about 45 minutes away. So I'm in Louisville.
Well, search Google for Louisville CPS attorney. I'm sure, some guy or gal will be happy to drive from Louisville 45 minutes to the courthouse to help defend you. Especially if they're getting paid for it, right?
Right.
I mean, I've traveled all over California and over the United States to do cases for people. So I'm sure that you'll be able to find some. You just got to keep looking and keep talking. We have a show called CPS The Horror Stories, and it's
I've been on it.
Okay, so the host Cynthia.
Mhm.
Before Cynthia found me, she talked to, because I represented her and got her kids back. She talked to 50 attorneys who all told her no. 50. Have you made 50 calls yet? Right. Okay. You haven't. I could tell by
Not
the
to
look on your face.
lawyers. Not to lawyers, but
Who are you going to call? Ghostbusters? You need to call lawyers. Okay. You need to call lawyers and start telling them. What I would do, what Cynthia had done, I don't know if she even remembers this. She came in and she had a typed out statement, which she read to me. It maybe took 90 seconds. And it got me intrigued enough in the case where, I started asking her questions. So maybe you should, it's kind of like a sales presentation, right? To try to find a lawyer that will take your case and help you. So maybe you can do that. But you got to start calling lawyers. And by the way, you don't have a lot of time. Laura, so many people I meet and think and talk to about these cases, they think they can make the decision, they have all the time in the world. Recently, a woman spoke to me maybe 3 weeks ago. And I told her, I said, you don't have a lot of time. You got to make a decision. If you don't want to hire me, that's great, but find somebody. She called me like a week later. I said, "You're running out of time." She called me a week after that. I said, "You're running out of time." She finally called me the day before the trial. And she said, this is what she said to me. She said, "My dad said you can go to court and get a continuance. We will hire you right now." And I told her, "Your dad is, I'm sorry, incorrect. This is not a civil or criminal case. These CPS cases, they don't just continue them like that." So, turns out the judge told me, "Mr. Davis, if you're not ready to go to trial today, I'm not letting you on the case. The mother has to proceed with the court appointed attorney she has." And Mr. Davis, by the way, why did you wait so long? I, of course, couldn't say anything because it was attorney client privilege. Well, the client waited. She let 3 weeks go by, right? How can I do a trial? I've never seen the file, never interviewed any witnesses, never subpoenaed any witnesses or documents to defend you. How am I going to do a trial in less than 24 hours notice? You, they're not going to give you the continuance. You can try, and maybe you'll get lucky 1 out of 100 times, but those other 99 times, they won't even let you in the case. You're not ready to go. I'm sorry. You can't come onto the case. So you don't have a lot of time. Start making those calls. If I were you, I'd start making a list of people to call right now, today, tonight. Go on Google, get an Excel spreadsheet, put the name, telephone number, and Monday morning, you and your husband wake up. You guys are calling. Start calling. Okay?
Okay.
All right. I know we're way past our time here, but did you have another question you wanted to ask me?
I have all kinds. I was hoping maybe I could come back tomorrow and ask them, but
Okay. You can come back tomorrow and ask them. Um, you might have heard that I said we're going to do this tomorrow, and the other lady that was
yeah.
before you, she's going to come back with her questions prepared, hopefully. Grace, why don't you call or contact Laura and Robert and arrange for them to come on tomorrow? And Grace, I'll talk to you later about what time we're going to do it. I have to look at my schedule as well. Okay. All right, Laura and Robert. Is it Domek?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
There's Robert.
Thank you.
All righty. So we'll talk to you tomorrow.
Okay. Thank you.
Uh-huh. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye.
All right, folks, that's the end of the stream today. We'll see everybody tomorrow. We haven't decided on the time, but check on your Facebook or your YouTube, and my producer will post the time that we'll be live tomorrow. All righty. Thank you. Bye-bye.